This is the continuation video. I want to add just one more thing about cropping, and then I'm going to go into the rest of the video material, which is about copying and pasting all of these images that you've cropped into a new document. So I'm going to take the crop tool again. I have an image here that has not been cropped to 200 pixels by 200 pixels. Take the crop tool, select it by clicking on it, and I do have the presets set in there from the last crop I did still of 200 by 200 pixels at a resolution of 72. So Photoshop gives me that preliminary selection that could be my crop if I wanted to keep it. So I wanted to point out, well, if I did want to keep this, notice in my options bar I don't have a check mark. So another way that you can confirm or like hit the check mark without the check mark, or even if there is one, is just simply double clicking inside the image, and that's the same thing. Okay, I'm going to undo that. So I'm going up to my history panel and I'm going to click on the previous step. And one more thing I wanted to point out about the crop tool, I'm going to select the crop tool again, and I get that preliminary crop. And let's say I don't want my point to be right in the middle. I want it to be at a lower section or one of the lower regions or an upper region. So I can take the arrow keys on my keyboard and use that to move that selection up or down or sideways. So I'm using the arrow keys, and once I've used the arrow keys, I get the little move tool here, and I can now go and click and move that around and go and commit to that. I could still at this point make my selection smaller or change the size of it. But so I just wanted to point out you can use your arrow keys to kind of shift what things are into different spots. I'm going to put this point off a little bit to one of these intersecting third lines. And also to commit to a crop, you can double click inside the image, and that's going to be the same thing as hitting that check mark. Okay, so let's move on now to the next thing, which is create a new document. We go up to File, New, and I'm going to make sure I'm in pixels, not inches. This would be a humongous document if you did it in inches. So if you have inches, from the drop down, choose pixels, and that'll switch both. I'm going to put my width at 600 and my height to 1100, and those were the dimensions I gave you. If you want, you could also switch these around. You could do it 1100 by 600. Resolution is going to stay at 72 because this is a document for the web, and I'm going to keep these other settings of RGB and a background contents of white. Click OK, and that gives me my new document. As I'm going to minimize my history panel here so we can look at it in the tab, notice I'm only seeing it at 50% because it's such a large document that it doesn't fit on my screen here. If I view it at 100%, I'd have to scroll. So Photoshop automatically minimizes it, assuming that I want to see the entire document. I'm going to click on my first image over here, and the steps to copy and paste something are you select, you copy, then you go to the other document and paste. So to select this, I could go up to my main menu and choose Select All, but there's a keyboard shortcut here I'd like you to learn because it's very useful, and that's Control A. If you're on a Mac, that would be Command A. So Control A, or go up to Select and then choose Select All. And I'm not sure why that's blinking. Photoshop is being very strange for me right now. I hope it's not doing this for you. But anyway, I get what's called the little marching ants going all the way around my image. That means I have an active selection. And now that Photoshop knows what's selected, I can copy it. So I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Control C, but you can also go up to Edit, Copy. Great. And now I'm going to click on the tab to get to my untitled document and paste. I can go to Edit, Paste, or use the keyboard shortcut Control V. And here it is. Now I want to move it into an approximate location. So I'm going to take the very first tool on my toolbar, and that's the Move tool. It also is keyboard shortcut V. That's a useful shortcut. And I'm just going to take that and drag it up approximately up to here. Great. So that one is done. I could close that. Go to the next one. Now to move faster, I'm going to use my keyboard shortcuts, Control A, Control C. Go to the tab of the other one of my new document, Control V, and put that one into its approximate space as well. And so on and so forth. I'm just going to quickly go through here. Okay, so now I have all 8 of mine in here, and the other thing to point out is that in the Layers panel, I now have all these additional layers. When I first created my document, by default, I was given a background layer, and that's a locked layer, and it was just white. If we look at some of our other images, you'll notice they just have their single layer because there's nothing else going on here. But what Photoshop does is every single time you paste something into a document, it automatically pastes it on its own layer. And that's kind of the beauty of Photoshop, that these will print out and look like it's one individual image, but it's actually made up of multiple images. Now the trick is, let's say I want to switch the order around. I have to know which layer which image is on. Or if I take my Move tool, because that's the tool I'm going to use to move things around, in the options bar I go up to the top, and where it says auto select, I check that, and now whatever I click on, I'm going to click here, Photoshop is going to grab the corresponding layer for me. So layer 4 is the layer that I was on. I'm going to click over here. Photoshop knows that's layer 5. So on and so forth. If I don't have auto select on, I have to first make sure I know which layer is which. And I can also find that out quickly by using the eyeball right here, clicking that off and on, and that tells me, oh, layer 6 is the grass. Well, instead of layer 6, maybe I want to call it grass. So I'm going to double click where it says layer 6. It's kind of like a slow click, and I'll call it, rename it grass. I could click on this one, layer 5, turn the eyeball off. Oh, that's, I'll call it grid. And so on and so forth. So that's a great technique to know about, using that eye to find out what layer is which, and also renaming. That's really helpful. But always I would suggest working with the Move tool with the auto select on, and that'll really help you be able to organize and figure out what's what. So I'm going to just switch these around, and so I have my points on the top and my lines on the bottom. Now, one of the things I asked you to do was to use the grid. So if I go up to View, Show, I can have a grid here. I can put a grid and use that to help me kind of line up my images. You probably noticed though that they sort of snapped next to each other. And the other thing I can do is if I go to View, Rulers, I can now create guides. I now have a ruler on the top and a ruler on the side. And I'm going to create a guide that says, well, I want to have, well, let's say a 1/2 inch border, or I have to do the math to be able to get it even, but maybe it would actually be a 1 inch border on each side. So I'm going to click into my horizontal ruler. I'm just clicked on the side, and I'm going to, holding my mouse down, I'm dragging out a guide. And I'm going to let it go once I'm looking up at the top when it says 1 inch, when I've lined up right here. And now I'm going to create another one, again grabbing my horizontal ruler and dragging out, and I'm going to make it, let's see, right there, it should be about 1 inch. So now I can take each one of those images and move them over, and they're going to kind of snap to that guide. And so now I have the same amount of space on either side of my images. But it can be a little bit hard to work with that grid, so I can go back up to View, and where it says Show, I can click on Grid to turn that off. In the same place I would go if I wanted to turn off my guides. Okay, so you can align this however you want, but I would just like to see some even spacing, at least around the sides here. But if you want to do the same for the tops and bottoms, that would be great as well. And you can create the guides for the horizontal the same way. I'm going to grab my top ruler and just click and drag down and make my guide. And you'll notice your image, if you need to relocate it, kind of snaps into the guide. So the next thing is adding text. What I would like is for you to add the text underneath each one of these images. Does the point pierce? Does it pucker? Does the line split? Or does it join? What does it do? So for this, I might want to be a little bit zoomed in so I can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to zoom in a bit, and I'm going to actually hit the space bar to turn to the hand tool so I can drag my document down. For some reason it's freezing up on me, so let's see if I do it manually. There we go. I'm not sure what's going on there. And now I'm going to take the text tool. So the text tool is here kind of towards the bottom of your toolbar. I'm going to take my text tool and I'm going to situate it. I'm going to resize it and change a different font and placement, everything later, so I'm not going to worry too much. I'm just going to situate it below that image, and I'm going to just click and then type in, I think that this one pierces. Type in pierce. Now it looks a little bit strange because I'm zoomed into 200%, so that's why it's pixelated. After this is still active, you notice if I move my mouse away, it actually becomes the move tool. So I could switch this and move it around. I could select this text and go up to my options bar and change the size. Maybe I want that a little bit larger. Change the font right up here. So all of the default options you're going to change for the for your text. I'm going to commit to this. I'm hitting the check mark, and then I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I don't like the way it looks so zoomed in. So that's how it would actually look. I'm now at 100%. So all of those options for the text tool, again, if I'm here and I want to change them, I go up to the options bar. Notice in the layers panel, whenever you use text, it creates a new layer, and it's going to have a big T in front of it, and it's also going to say the first part of whatever text you actually wrote. So if this was a whole paragraph, it would just give me the first line, but I have a single word, so I see that there. I'll go ahead and put another one here. So taking that text tool, grab that text tool again. There's definitely a lag that is happening on my computer with this version of Photoshop. I hope the same is not happening for you. So I'm going to put this one as pucker. And again, I move my tool a little bit out to the side, and it becomes the move tool, and I can take that text and kind of place it and locate it wherever I want. Now, of course, what would be ideal is if I set up a guide. If I'm going to indent all of my text, set up a guide so they all start at the same spot. And I'm going to commit to this, hit the check mark. I can also just double click, and I could go to the next one, and same thing, and I'm going to put split and move it. I should have capitalized it so it's going to line up with that guide. And I could have a horizontal guide as well. Okay, so I think you get the general idea. Copying and pasting, go to your original image, select all, which is Control A, and then copy, edit, copy, or Control C to copy. Go into your new document that you've created and paste it, either edit, paste, or Control V as in Victor to paste. Add your guides to get them located into the right spots. You have some even margins on either side. And add some text. Again, you can use your guides to help line them up. And to get the guides, you use rulers, which you can see from View, Rulers. And then to add a guide, you just click into the ruler itself, into either the horizontal or vertical ruler, and holding the mouse down, drag it out, and that's going to give you a guide. The guides do not print out, by the way. And I guess the last thing I should mention is if you want to go back and edit some text. So this text, I want to capitalize my S. I'm going to do that by going to the layer, the corresponding layer, and double-clicking the T, which makes it editable again. And now I can go back to my S, use the backspace, and capitalize my split, and then again to the check mark and commit to it. The last thing is for saving this, File, Save As, and I'm going to choose JPEG, again, just like I did in the last practice, and I'm going to name it point line, and hit save. And that's all. Okay, enjoy your practice.